Macy, guess what I heard?
What?
Someone traveled from halfway across the country to visit us on our first day. This must mean that we're getting really good.
It must.
A New Mexico native is here with us today to visit us for some fun in the sun.
Emily Gossett is a former New Mexico State FFA officer and was elected at the 96th National FFA Convention as the National FFA Western Region Vice President. She has taken a year off from her studies at New Mexico State University to serve over 945,000 FFA members while traveling over 100,000 miles throughout her year of service to advocate for agriculture education and the FFA. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have with us today our National FFA Western Region Vice President, Emily Gossett.
Perfect. Well, good morning, Georgia FFA. Woo! All right, so I've had some time that I've spent in Georgia. You see, this is my second time in Georgia, second time in Macon, and I've learned a couple things. So I've learned a few things about Publix, I've learned some things about boiled peanuts, and I've learned that in Georgia, when you say go, it's almost always followed by dogs. But while I've been in Georgia, I've loved learning about the state, but I want to learn about the group that we have here as a whole just a little bit. So I'm just going to ask some questions, and if your answer is yes, just raise your hand for me. Sound good? All right, so let's see here. Raise your hand for me if you have a favorite food. Okay. My favorite food is carrots, which usually gets like a really weird reaction, but I just think they're so good. All right, what about, do you have a favorite color? All right, keep the hand raised if your favorite color is blue, pink, yellow, brown, green, red, any other color I didn't say? Purple. How do I always forget purple? All right, what about, do you love music? Yeah, I am a playlist curator. I absolutely adore sitting down for 6 hours and making the perfectly crafted playlist. What about, raise your hand for me if you are clumsy. Yeah. So all of us, we are one and the same. You see, I would happen to say I'm like the clumsiest person ever. I can trip over air. There can be nothing in my way and I will fall. And this special talent of mine always seems to come together at the worst moments in time. So I'm with a bunch of the national officer candidates at National Convention. We're about to go check out the rooms that we have that we're going to be in for about, the next 7 days that determine our fates. I'm walking with them. They're like the best of the best. And this unfortunate talent that I have really came to fruition in this moment. So I'm walking, there's some stairs, and unfortunately I walked right out of my shoes and fell right before the stairs. It just absolutely hit the ground. See, everybody else is laughing because that's when you do when people fall in front of you. Some friends of mine helped me up, but I was mortified. You see, I just wanted to crawl back to my hotel room and stay there the rest of the week. My parents always say that they should have named me Grace, because I don't have any. But it's these moments that get me thinking, what is grace? You see, grace isn't just one of the most popular girls' names or being able to stay on your feet. No, it's something deeper. Grace is undeserved but freely given. Grace is small kindnesses like holding the door open for a stranger or picking up some trash you see on the road. Grace is forgiveness, forgiving others when they hurt us, or being forgiven when we hurt others. Grace is speaking to ourselves with positivity. Grace is undeserved, but freely given. Grace, small kindnesses. How many of us have ever had a day where we just want to put our AirPods in, put our heads down, and drown out the world? Yeah. For me, those days usually happen in airports, and I get a lot of that time this year. But I want to take y'all back. So in airports specifically, I just like to use that as my recharge time. It's my me time. So if you see me in an airport ever, you'll probably see my AirPods in, book in my hand, and walk into my gate with my game face on. A little something like that. So I'm in an airport, it's the Tulsa airport, and I am just having one of those days where I just need to recharge. So I have my AirPods in as I'm getting on the plane, and I'm in the window seat, which is my favorite. There's nobody next to me. You see, for those of us that haven't flown that often, those seats next to us are priceless for our comfort on a plane. So there's nobody seated next to me, and I'm just hoping that nobody will. So boarding starts, and some more people get on, and somebody sits in the aisle seat. But that's okay, because I still have the middle seat, I still have some room, I'm still feeling comfortable. The last person on the plane sits right next to me. So, feeling a bit annoyed, I kind of shuffle into the corner, keep my AirPods in, and I'm just reading my book. I'm completely drowning out the world, even the announcements from the flight attendants, when I feel a tap on my shoulders that sends shivers down my spine. Oh no, the lady next to me wants to talk. She literally doesn't even know that this is my me time. This is my time to recharge. Come on now. Okay, Emily, you really do have to answer her. Your mother raised you better than this. Okay, well, this is getting awkward. And those were the thoughts that were circling in my brain for about what felt like 5 minutes, but it was actually 5 seconds. So eventually, I decide that my mama raised me better, so I pull my AirPods out, I look at her, and I say, hey, how can I help you? She looks at me, and she says, I'm deaf, and I can't hear. Can you help me understand? So with a little bit of a background in sign language, I sign, hello, my name is Emily. She looks back at me and she says, hi, my name is Bobby. For the next hour plane ride, Bobby and I talked about everything under the sun. See, she had on some pretty sparkly bracelets, and so I complimented them because one of them was pink, and that's my favorite color. My book that I was reading was called November 9th, and coincidentally, that was her daughter's birthday, which just so happened to be the reason that she felt comfortable enough talking to me. You see, Bobby and I connected on very different things, but in that moment, she taught me a really important lesson. Small kindnesses aren't loud, but they echo forever. You see, getting onto that flight, I had no clue that Bobby was about to change my perspective on what kindness looks like in small settings. As we were getting off of the plane, Bobby grabbed my wrist, and she put one of the pink bracelets on it. She said, thank you for taking the time to talk to an old deaf lady. Then she put the bracelet on. She said, you are my sunshine today. In a moment where I should have felt like $1 million, I felt like a fraud. Bobby had no clue the thoughts that were racing through my brain when we first interacted, and the fact that I didn't even want to get to know her. But sometimes we have to step outside of our comfortability because kindness is ever around us. What are some ways that you can be intentional being kinder in small moments? Maybe it's when we leave this session today, holding the door open for an extra chapter, or picking up some trash on the floor, or thanking your ag teacher for bringing you to state convention. It's all our first time living. Try to be kinder. You see, this foundation of grace being built on small kindnesses lends into what that looks like in a bigger situation. How many of us have ever said something that we didn't really think through? Yeah, maybe it was a funny but not well-timed joke, or something a little deeper, like calling out somebody's insecurities because you're trying to be funny. Trust me, I've made my fair share of comments that haven't always been rooted in kindness, whether intentional or not, but the really cool thing about grace is that it prioritizes room for forgiveness. One of the first times that I learned this, I was actually in the 6th grade sitting in a McDonald's. You see, my best friend Rachel was across from me, and I was about to do something hard, but she was about to do something harder. So let me take you back. So about a week prior, I had decided that Rachel needed a nickname because she didn't have one. And so I thought in my little 6th grade brain, and I came up with the perfect one. Well, we're in the band room, and nothing's really going on. So everybody was kind of looking to me for comedic relief and, like, what was I supposed to do? So after Rachel had begged me not to tell anyone her new nickname, I got up on a chair in the middle of the band room. I'm a little short, so I had to be seen by everybody. So I got up on a chair, and I started saying, all right, everybody, Rachel's new nickname is ricotta cheese. And then everybody started kind of chanting, ricotta Rachel, ricotta Rachel, ricotta Rachel. Yeah, so everybody was laughing. It was glorious, and I was just basking in everybody thinking that I am hilarious. In that moment that I was really taking in that glory, I didn't even realize that Rachel had left the room. I actually didn't realize I'd done or said anything wrong until I got home that night, and I was met with a stern talking to from my parents. Yeah, that one got me a month grounded. You see, I hurt Rachel with my words. But the really cool thing about Rachel and I's 16 years of friendship is that she has forgiven me for every wrongdoing that I've ever done. You see, Rachel places priority on our friendship, and that means that she places priority on grace. So we're back in this McDonald's, and I hand Rachel a letter filled with 1,000 I'm sorries. Rachel tells me how my words hurt her. But in that moment, Rachel chose to be brave. Rachel chose to forgive me. If someone is brave enough to say that they are sorry, be brave enough to forgive them. If someone is brave enough to say that they are sorry, be brave enough to forgive them. You see, Rachel chose grace, and she chose forgiveness because she wanted to continue our friendship. What are some ways that you can be braver in forgiveness? What are some ways that you can be braver in asking for forgiveness? Sometimes, the bravest thing that we have to do is forgive without receiving an apology. So whether you can't contact somebody anymore, or you don't have the opportunity to hear them out, let go of that hurt and fill that gap with grace. It is all our first time living. Try to be kinder, and try to be more forgiving. You see, when we build this foundation of grace on small kindnesses and forgiveness, we have this perfect formula to emulating it to others. But oftentimes, the most important people that we forget to give grace to is ourselves. You see, grace is only a word until we experience it. How many of us have ever been our own worst critics? For me, I know that negative self-talk is something that I struggle with. In those moments where you've really let yourself be your own worst critic, have you treated yourself with kindness, or have you let your forgiveness flow freely? I'm guessing the answer is no, but when other people give us grace, we can learn how to emulate that in our lives. You see, the first time that I really remember receiving grace was Thanksgiving of 2015. You see, you would not find my papa or I in the kitchen. We are hazards there. But you would find us putting our talents to use in the best way that we knew how, painting. So I'm in the sunroom with my grandfather, and I'm seated between him and a television screen. And on the screen, there's a soft-spoken guy with an afro. Yeah, we were watching Bob Ross. And for those of us that don't know who Bob Ross is, he's a painter that had a television show. And I happen to think he's pretty cool. So my papa's here, Bob Ross is here, and my canvas is here. So I start following along with what Bob Ross is saying. So we've got some beautiful rocks over here, some palm trees over here, and a beautiful blue ocean landscape in the middle. It was beautiful. Now, I would never, ever, ever say that I'm a painter, but Bob Ross leaves very little room for error, and so this painting was the best work of art I had ever made. So I hurriedly start picking everything up to go show my mom and my grandma, when my papa, he looks at me and he says, "Honey, you can't show anybody until you sign it." And knowing that my papa is never wrong, I pick up a thin paintbrush, dip it in some black paint, and I write, "Emily." Except it didn't look like that. It actually looked like, so if like a monster had like really long claws and like dipped it in some black paint, just kind of did something on the bottom left corner, yeah, that's what it looked like. And I was devastated. You see, all I could see on my piece of art was the one little corner where I'd messed up. When my papa saw my change in disposition, he looked at me and he said, "You didn't ruin it, sweetie. You just made it more you. You didn't ruin it. You just made it more you." You see, oftentimes we forget to look at the big picture, and we only focus on the mistakes that we've made. But life is beautiful regardless, and we are not made of our mistakes. I mean, Bob Ross said it best. There are no mistakes, just happy accidents. What are some ways that you can change your mindset on being kinder to yourself? Maybe it's finding a friend to hold you accountable, to lifting you up positively, or writing an affirmation on your mirror that you see every single morning that you can look in and say, "I am worthy and I am enough." It's all our first time living. Try to be kinder. Try to be more forgiving. Try to be more graceful. You see, grace is built on the foundation that it is undeserved but freely given, and we see that come together with small kindnesses, forgiveness, and speaking positively to ourselves. You see, Georgia FFA, I fully believe that each of us has a mission when we leave this convention today. Ask yourself, how will I be kinder even in small moments? How will I be braver even in forgiveness? And how will I be graceful even to myself? It is a mindset change that we have to ask, because what if your grace could change somebody's life, could change somebody's perspective, could change somebody? You see, grace being built on the foundation of small kindnesses, forgiveness, and positivity means that we are able to step forth into the world. And sometimes that step is going to be met with falling on your face, like I did in front of the national officer candidates. But maybe, just maybe, your next step will be rooted in the fact that grace is undeserved but freely given, so that you can step forth again and stumble gracefully. Thank you.
State President.
Emily, thank you for coming to Georgia and spending our 96th Georgia FFA State Convention with us. We have enjoyed getting to listen to your stories and lessons this morning. God bless and enjoy the rest of your year of service.